You think you've won, but you've just made your biggest mistake. I whispered those words as I stood in the hallway of the mansion I once called home. At that moment I didn't feel the weight of the world crashing down on me. I felt something much stronger. It was the calm before the storm. And it was in that silence that I knew. Amanda had no idea what was coming for her. She thought she could push me around, throw me out of my own house and have the last laugh. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just some helpless widow waiting for her pity. I had a secret that would change everything. The same secret that had been kept from everyone, even my late husband Daniel, for years. It was a skyscraper. A $28 million skyscraper in the heart of New York City. And now it was mine. Carolyn Hayes, the woman she thought was broken, was about to turn the tables. You see, life has a funny way of teaching you who the real enemies are, and just how far you're willing to go to protect what's yours. Amanda had underestimated me, and now it was my turn to let her know just how wrong she was. The day of Daniel's funeral, I had walked out without a word, not letting her see the storm brewing inside me. She didn't know it yet, but she had just sealed her own fate. I didn't need to scream or cry. No, I just needed to be patient. I had spent years caring for a family that no longer cared for me. The house had once been filled with love, laughter, and memories of a life well lived. But now it felt empty, as if it was mocking me. I could hear Amanda's voice in my head, telling me to leave. Pack your bags and never come back, she had said, like I was some stranger she could toss out without a second thought. It wasn't enough that I had just buried the love of my life, my husband of 32 years. Now I was being shoved out of my own home by my own son and his wife. And as if that wasn't enough, the pain was deepened by the realization that they had been planning this for months. They didn't care about me. They didn't care that I had given everything for this family. And yet here I was standing alone on the edge of losing it all. But Amanda didn't know who she was messing with. I had something she couldn't even begin to comprehend. A legacy. A legacy that I had every right to hold on to. For years Daniel had kept this secret from me, hidden away from everyone, even me. He had purchased the building before he got sick, never telling me the full extent of his investments. But now with his death it was mine. And I wasn't going to let it slip through my fingers. The idea of moving into a senior community was ridiculous, a joke really. I wasn't some frail old woman waiting to be carted off to a nursing home. No, I was Carolyn Hayes and I would fight for what was mine. I took a breath, staring at the empty house. I had spent years here cooking meals, raising my son, caring for Daniel. But now it felt different. Cold. As if the walls were closing in on me. Amanda had no idea what she had just unleashed. She thought I would just pack my bags and disappear like a forgotten piece of furniture. But she didn't know what Daniel had left me. She didn't know that I had spent countless hours planning my next move, waiting for the right moment to strike. The lawyers had already been contacted, and soon I would be in control. Not her. Not James, my son, who was too spineless to stand up to his wife. No, it would be me. I had already started my preparations. The paperwork was in place, and the skyscraper, once Daniel's secret, would soon become my weapon. My leverage. My revenge. Amanda would regret the day she thought she could break me. But for now I would bide my time. I would play along, pretending to go along with her plans, smiling in her face while I made my own arrangements. I would let her think she was winning. But she wasn't. Not even close. The days that followed Daniel's funeral felt like a haze. I moved through the motions, pretending to grieve, pretending to accept my fate. Amanda had made it clear I wasn't welcome, not just in her home, but in the family's future plans. Yet, in the back of my mind I knew I wasn't. Powerless. The skyscraper I now owned gave me more power than anyone realized. And Amanda? She was about to find that out the hard way. My son, James, had been oddly quiet since the funeral. He hadn't said much when Amanda kicked me out, just stood there, his gaze fixed on the floor as if he was somewhere else entirely. Was it guilt? Or just cowardice? Either way, he wasn't going to be any help to me. But I couldn't ignore the fact that he too had changed since Daniel passed. There was a distance between us now. A coldness. And Amanda? She wasn't even trying to hide her disdain. She would come over to the house, make herself comfortable, and give me that fake smile, pretending nothing had happened. It was almost as if she thought I'd just accept her cruelty without question. I would smile back, but inside I was planning. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I would make sure of it. I started taking small steps, subtle at first, but they were steps nonetheless. I called a lawyer, one I trusted from years ago. I didn't want anyone else involved. Just someone who would understand my situation without asking too many questions. I couldn't let Amanda or anyone else know what I was doing, so I kept things quiet. As I waited for the legal papers to be drawn up, I took my time learning about the skyscraper. I wanted to know everything about it. Its history, the tenants, the building's worth. Daniel had always kept it to himself, his little secret. Now it was mine. I wasn't just an old woman with no power. I was Carolyn Hayes, and this skyscraper was my ticket to reclaiming everything I had lost. Slowly, I began to realize the potential of what I had in my hands. The skyscraper was worth more than just money, it was leverage. It was everything Amanda wanted. I wasn't going to hand it over to her, not without a fight. Every morning, I would sit by the window in my study, watching the city unfold before me. The building stood tall against the skyline, a silent testament to Daniel's ambition. Now it would be a symbol of my strength, my resilience. I wasn't going to let her win. Not like this. A few days later, James came over. He had that look on his face, the one that told me he was uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. Amanda wasn't with him. She probably thought it would be easier to manipulate me if she wasn't around, but I knew better. I could already tell where this was going. "Mom," James said, sitting down across from me at the kitchen table. "I know this isn't easy, but you need to understand that Amanda and I are just trying to do what's best for everyone. The house is too big for you now. You need to think about moving into a retirement community. Somewhere more manageable." His words stung, but I didn't show it. Instead, I nodded, pretending to consider his proposal. "I see," I replied, my voice calm, controlled. "And what about the house?" He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "We were thinking about selling it. It's too much for us to handle as it is." I kept my eyes on him, my heart beating faster with each word. "I understand. But tell me, James, what about my other assets? The things your father left behind for me?" He shifted again, his face growing pale. "Mom, you know we've talked about this." I let the silence hang in the air, letting the tension build. I could see it in his eyes. He knew something was coming. But I wasn't ready to reveal everything just yet. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm sure you and Amanda will figure everything out. Just remember, this house was my home long before it was yours." He didn't know how close he was to the truth. He didn't know what I had found. And he had no idea how much I was capable of. The days that followed felt like I was playing a game, but I wasn't sure if I was the pawn or the queen. I had to stay sharp, stay patient. Amanda thought she had everything under control, but she didn't. I was going to make sure of that. One night after dinner, I pulled out the paperwork from the lawyer. It was official now. The skyscraper was mine in every legal sense. I sat at the table, my hands trembling slightly as I looked over the documents. This was it. This was the moment when everything changed. I had all the power now. Amanda had no idea. But she would soon. I could feel the storm brewing inside me, waiting for the right moment to unleash. And when I did, I knew it would be a game changer. Amanda had kicked me out of my own home, thinking she had one. But she had no idea what I had in store. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. As the days went by, the weight of what I had discovered began to settle into my bones. The skyscraper was mine, and with it the power to change everything. But I had to be careful. Amanda and James were still in the dark. They had no idea what I was truly capable of. I had spent my life being the caretaker, the one who always put family first. But now? Now it was my turn to take control. Every morning I would sit at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, staring out the window, watching the world go by. It felt strange, like I was living in a dream, waiting for the right moment to wake up. I could still hear Amanda's voice in my mind, cold and dismissive, telling me to pack my bags and never come back. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not without taking what was rightfully mine. My thoughts were interrupted when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I took my time answering. When I opened the door, there stood Amanda, dressed in one of her usual expensive outfits, looking like she had just walked out of a fashion magazine. She forced a smile when she saw me. "Carolyn," she said, her voice too sweet. "I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up?" I didn't trust her smile, but I smiled back, keeping my voice steady.
"I'm fine, Amanda."
"Just getting used to things, you know?" She nodded, her eyes flickering nervously. "I just wanted to come by and check in on you. You know, to make sure you're doing okay." It was all an act. I could see right through her. She was trying to get me to open up, to show weakness, to let my guard down. But I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. "I'm doing just fine," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped into the house without waiting for an invitation. "I know things have been hard since Daniel passed," she said, looking around the room as if she owned it. "But I think it's time to make some decisions about the house. It's too big for you, Carolyn. You don't need all this space anymore. Maybe it's time you moved into something more manageable. A retirement community, perhaps." I could feel the heat rising in my chest. She thought I was weak, that I couldn't handle the pressure. But I had been through so much more than she could ever understand. I wasn't going anywhere. "I'm not ready to move just yet," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "This house has been my home for decades. I'm not just going to leave it behind because you think it's too big for me." Amanda smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, Carolyn. I understand. But you have to understand, this house is a lot to maintain. It's not just about the space, it's about the cost. You've seen the bills piling up, haven't you?" I kept my face neutral. She was trying to wear me down, to make me doubt myself, but I wouldn't let her. "I can handle the bills," I said, my voice firm. "But thanks for your concern." Amanda's smile faltered for a moment, and I could see the frustration building behind her eyes. "Well, Carolyn, I just thought I should let you know that James and I have been talking. We're thinking about selling the house. It's really the only practical solution. You can't live here forever." The words stung, but I refused to show any emotion. I had already made up my mind. She wasn't going to get her way. "You're right," I said, stepping back and closing the door behind her. "I can't live here forever. But I can make my own decisions. And right now, I'm not going anywhere." The smile that appeared on Amanda's face was the same one she had given me before. Fake, forced, and cold. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes darted nervously as if she was already planning her next move. "Well, Carolyn," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "you know where to find us if you change your mind. We're just trying to help." I nodded, pretending to consider her words. "I'll keep that in mind," I replied. "Thanks for stopping by." As she walked out the door, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. She didn't know it yet, but the game had changed. I had the upper hand now. The skyscraper was mine, and I wasn't going to let her take it from me. I wasn't going to let anyone take anything from me ever again. That night, as I sat alone in the living room, the weight of the day finally caught up with me. My hands trembled as I held the documents in front of me, the papers that proved the skyscraper was mine. I had been patient, biding my time, waiting for the right moment to make my move. And now that moment was here. Amanda had no idea what she was dealing with, but soon she would. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything Daniel and I had built. Not without a fight. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had underestimated just how much power I now held. This wasn't just about a building or money, it was about control. It was about making sure no one, not even Amanda, could push me around again. I wasn't going to let her dictate my future. I was going to take back what was mine, and I was going to do it on my terms. The next day I made the first call. The lawyer's office. I needed them to prepare the papers to make sure everything was set. I was ready to take the next step, and this time, Amanda wouldn't be able to stop me. She thought she had one, but she had no idea what I was capable of. The morning after Amanda's visit, I sat by the window again, the sun streaming through the glass, casting long shadows across the floor. The weight of everything that had happened still lingered, but now it felt different. My heart wasn't heavy with grief anymore. Instead, it was filled with something else, something stronger. Something I hadn't allowed myself to feel for years. I had spent so much of my life caring for others, putting their needs above my own, that I had forgotten what it meant to take care of myself. But now I was ready to change that. Amanda thought she could push me around, that I would simply bow down to her demands and disappear into the background. She thought wrong. I had the power now. I wasn't going to let her win. The lawyer had assured me that everything was in place. The skyscraper was mine, and there was nothing Amanda could do to take it away from me. It wasn't just about the building, though. It was about taking control of my life again. I had spent too long being overlooked, being treated like I didn't matter. But I mattered. And it was time to show the world, especially Amanda, that I wasn't going to let anyone walk all over me anymore. As the days passed, I watched Amanda and James continue with their plans, acting like they had everything figured out. They had no idea what was coming. I made sure to keep my distance, not giving them any hint of what I was planning. I didn't need to. The power was already in my hands. One afternoon, I received a call from the lawyer's office. The papers were ready. It was time to make my move. I wasn't going to wait any longer. Amanda had taken enough from me, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. I drove to the lawyer's office, my heart beating a little faster than usual. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As I walked into the office, the lawyer greeted me with a smile, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He knew what was at stake here. "Everything's set," he said, handing me a stack of papers. "We've secured your claim to the property. The building is officially yours, Carolyn." I felt a surge of satisfaction run through me. This wasn't just about money. It was about taking back control. It was about proving to Amanda and James that I wasn't someone to be underestimated. "Thank you," I said, taking the papers and signing my name without hesitation. I felt the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. I was no longer the passive, overlooked woman I had once been. I was in control now. As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. I wasn't done yet, but I knew the hardest part was over. The next step was to confront Amanda, to let her know that I had the upper hand. She thought she could take everything from me, but she had no idea what I had in store. I knew that confronting her wouldn't be easy. She would try to deny everything, try to spin the situation in her favor. But I wasn't going to let her. This time the truth would come out, and I would make sure she knew exactly what she had been playing with. Later that evening, as I prepared dinner, I felt the anticipation building inside me. I didn't need to prepare a big speech or make grand gestures. All I needed was to tell her the truth. I was stronger now. I could feel it in every fiber of my being. When Amanda walked through the door, I was ready. She came in as usual, with that smile plastered on her face. "Carolyn," she said, her tone as sweet as ever. "I wanted to talk about the house. Have you given any more thought to moving into a retirement community?" I looked at her, my expression calm, my voice steady. "I've given it some thought, Amanda. And I've made my decision." Her smile faltered for just a second, but she quickly regained her composure. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a little sharper now. "I mean, I'm not moving anywhere," I said, my gaze unwavering. "Not unless I decide to." She blinked, confusion flickering in her eyes. "What are you talking about? You can't stay here forever. It's too much for you." I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment I had been waiting for. "I don't need to stay here, Amanda. I've already made arrangements." Her face changed then, the pleasant mask slipping away as she stepped closer, her voice laced with suspicion. "What kind of arrangements? What are you hiding?" I smiled, not out of amusement but out of satisfaction. "I'm not hiding anything, Amanda. I just wanted to let you know that I own a $28 million skyscraper in New York City. And it's mine, not yours." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and undeniable. For a moment, Amanda didn't speak. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open, her eyes wide with shock. Then she laughed, but it wasn't a genuine laugh. It was more of a nervous chuckle, as if she thought I was joking. "You can't be serious," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "This is some kind of joke, right?" I shook my head. "I'm not joking, Amanda. I own that building, and it's worth far more than anything you could ever dream of. And now, it's mine to do with as I please." I watched as her expression changed, the shock giving way to something else. Fear, maybe. It was the look of someone who had just realized they had been playing a dangerous game. "You're lying," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're just trying to scare me." "I'm not lying," I said calmly. And I'm not trying to scare you. But I think you need to understand something, Amanda. I'm not the person you think I am. I'm not the woman you can push around anymore. Her face was pale now, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. This isn't over, she said, her voice trembling. You can't just take everything from me. I leaned in slightly, my voice low but steady. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm just taking what's mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally getting what I deserved. Amanda had thought she could control everything, but she had no idea what she was up against. I wasn't just some helpless widow. I was Carolyn Hayes, and I was taking my life back piece by piece. The next few days passed in a blur. I kept to myself, quietly savoring the victory of knowing Amanda's world was about to come crashing down. She thought she had control, that she had manipulated everyone, including me, into playing by her rules. But she had no idea what she was up against. I had been patient for so long, waiting for the right moment to take back what was mine. And now that moment had arrived. My lawyer had worked quickly, securing all the documents I needed. The skyscraper was officially mine. And the look on Amanda's face when she realized it was worth more than anything she could ever dream of was more than I could have hoped for. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one final card to play. Amanda had underestimated me. She thought I was just a lonely, grieving widow who could be easily dismissed. But I was far more than that. I had spent years building a life with Daniel. A life that was now mine to protect. I wasn't going to let her take it from me. I spent the next few days putting everything in order, preparing for the confrontation that I knew was coming. Amanda would come back, of course, but this time she wouldn't get away with anything. She would face the consequences of her actions. I was ready. On the 5th day she called. Her voice, as usual, was sweet, but I could hear the underlying tension. She knew she had lost, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. Carolyn, she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. We need to talk. I think it's time we work things out. We can't keep going on like this. I could hear the desperation in her voice, and it only made me more determined to stand my ground. I agree, I said calmly. We do need to talk. But it's on my terms now. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Amanda responded. What do you mean? She asked, clearly taken aback. I mean, you've been playing this game for far too long, I replied, my voice steady. And now it's my turn to make the rules. I could hear her breathe in sharply, as if she were trying to figure out what I meant. I'm not sure I understand, she said, trying to regain control. I wasn't going to let her. It's very simple, I said. I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine, and so is the skyscraper. You thought you could take everything from me, but I won't let that happen. The silence on the other end of the line stretched on for several seconds. I could hear Amanda's breathing become more shallow, more frantic. You can't be serious, she finally said, her voice trembling. You're not going to do this, Carolyn. You're not going to take everything from us. I smiled to myself. The fear in her voice was unmistakable. I'm not taking anything from you, I said calmly. I'm just taking what's mine. You and James have been planning to push me out for so long, but now you've pushed too far. This time I'm taking control. Amanda didn't respond immediately. I could hear her trying to gather her thoughts, trying to find a way to spin the situation in her favor. But it was too late. The truth had already been revealed. You don't understand, she said after a long pause. James and I were just trying to help you. We were looking out for you, Carolyn. You don't need all this. You don't need the house, the bills, the responsibility. I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. No, Amanda. You were looking out for yourselves, I said, my voice sharp now. You were trying to take everything from me, and I'm done letting you. This is my life, and I'll make my own decisions from now on. There was another silence, and I could practically feel Amanda seething on the other end of the line. You'll regret this, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. You think you've won, but you haven't. You don't know what you're up against. I didn't flinch. I know exactly what I'm up against, I said. And you should be worried, because I'm not the same woman you thought I was. I've spent my whole life taking care of everyone else. But now it's my turn to take care of myself. I hung up the phone without another word. I didn't need to say anything more. Amanda knew the game was over. She had lost. I spent the rest of the evening alone, thinking about everything that had led up to this moment. The years of sacrifice, the years of putting my family first, always trying to please them, to be the perfect wife and mother. And where had it gotten me? I had been treated like I didn't matter, like my needs didn't count. But that was over now. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a woman who had taken back control of her life. And I was going to make sure that Amanda and James understood that. The next day I called the lawyer again. I needed to make sure the papers were in order, that everything was legally binding. It was time to make my move. Amanda and James were going to learn that you don't mess with Carolyn Hayes. The next time they came to me, they would find that I had nothing left to lose. But they would also learn that, with nothing to lose, I had everything to gain. The next few days felt like I was walking on a tightrope. Each step I took, each conversation I had with Amanda or James felt calculated. A careful dance that I had to perfect. I had made my move, but I knew it was far from over. I still had to see this through to the end. I kept my distance from Amanda, refusing to let her see any sign of weakness. The way she looked at me with that smug, condescending smile only fueled the fire inside me. She thought I was done, that I had no fight left. But I wasn't. Not even close. The lawyer had already filed the papers. Everything was in motion. The skyscraper was officially mine, and Amanda had no idea just how much power I held. She kept pushing, kept trying to manipulate me into selling everything, into walking away quietly. She came by a few more times pretending to be concerned, but I saw through her. Every word out of her mouth was designed to manipulate me, to make me think I was weak, that I couldn't handle the responsibility. But I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't the naive woman she thought I was. One afternoon, as I was sitting in the living room, I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated before answering. When I opened the door, there stood James. His face was pale, his expression tense. "Mom," he said, his voice strained. "Can we talk?" I nodded and stepped aside to let him in. He walked past me without saying a word, his eyes darting around the room as if he was searching for something. I watched him, my heart racing. I had no idea what he wanted, but I could tell something was off. "What's going on, James?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He turned to face me, his face filled with confusion and frustration. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaky. "Why are you doing this? You're going to destroy everything. This whole family is falling apart." I raised an eyebrow, my calm demeanor never faltering. "What are you talking about?" "The house," he said, his voice rising. "We need to sell it, Mom. We can't afford to keep it. You're not going to be able to maintain it on your own. We've been trying to be patient with you, but you're not listening." I felt my blood boil at his words. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about the money. I had known that all along. "James," I said, my voice cold and controlled, "I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine, and I'm not selling it." His face reddened, his hands clenching into fists. "You're being ridiculous," he snapped. "You don't need all this. You don't need the responsibility. You're just too stubborn to see that." I felt a rush of anger, but I kept it in check. I wasn't going to let him see me lose control. "You think I don't know what's best for me?" I asked, my voice low. "You think I'm some helpless old woman who can't make decisions for herself? I'm not going to let you or Amanda take everything from me." He stared at me for a moment, as if weighing his next words carefully. "You're making a huge mistake, Mom," he said quietly. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "I know exactly what I'm getting into," I replied, my voice steady. "And I'm not backing down. I've spent my whole life taking care of you and your father. Now it's time for me to take care of myself." The silence between us was thick, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. I could see the conflict in his eyes, the guilt that had started to surface. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. "I'm not going to let you manipulate me anymore, James," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to let you push me out of my own life. The skyscraper is mine, and I'm not giving it up." He looked at me for a long moment, his face a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Finally he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know what to say, Mom," he said quietly. "I never wanted things to get this bad." I shrugged. not showing any emotion. You're the one who let it get this bad, I said. You and Amanda. But I'm done being the victim. I'm done being the one who has to suffer. This isn't over, he said, his voice low. You'll see. Maybe, I said, my tone calm. But I'm not backing down. This time it's my turn to win. With that, he turned and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I didn't feel satisfaction in his departure. No, it wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was something else. It was the feeling of finally taking control. Of no longer being the one who had to sit quietly and let others make decisions for me. Amanda and James had tried to manipulate me for so long, but now they were going to learn just how wrong they were. I wasn't some helpless widow who could be pushed around. I wasn't just a woman who had been forgotten. I was Carolyn Hayes, and I was done being silent. The next step was clear. I had the power now, and I wasn't afraid to use it. The following days felt like a slow burn. I could feel the tension building in my chest every time I saw Amanda's name pop up on my phone. The last conversation had only made her more desperate. She wasn't used to being denied. She wasn't used to someone standing their ground, especially not me. I knew she would come back, trying to find another way to manipulate me into giving up, into selling the house, into walking away from everything I had. But this time I wouldn't be the one who backed down. The call came just as I was sitting down to dinner. It was Amanda. I could hear the forced sweetness in her voice as she greeted me. Carolyn, I think it's time we talked. I could hear the faintest edge of anxiety in her tone. Something she couldn't hide. What about? I asked, keeping my voice steady, controlled. About the house, she said, her voice softening. James and I were talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider moving. We don't want to rush you, but it's just too much for you to handle on your own. I could picture her standing there in her perfect little world, thinking that she could still pull the strings. She thought she was being kind, trying to sound like she cared. But I knew better. I'm not moving, I said simply. The silence on the other end of the line was almost deafening. I could almost hear her scrambling for words, trying to figure out how to continue. But Carolyn, she said after a long pause, you don't understand. The house is too much. You're going to be alone here. We just want what's best for you. Moving to a retirement community is the right step. You'll have people around. You won't have to worry about the upkeep. It's a fresh start. I felt a flicker of anger deep inside me, but I didn't let it show. I knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about the money. You're right, I said, my tone measured. I don't need this house. But you're wrong about one thing, Amanda. I'm not moving. Not unless I want to. But this isn't about what you want, she said, her voice rising. This is about what's best for you, for your health, for your future. I don't need you or James to make decisions for me, I said, the words coming out sharper now. I've made my own decisions my entire life. And this time, I'm making the decision to stay right where I am. There was a pause on the other end. Amanda was silent, and I could feel the weight of the moment. She was realizing, maybe for the first time, that she wasn't in control anymore. You don't understand, she said, her voice tight with frustration. You're not thinking clearly. You're letting your pride get in the way of what's best for you. I could hear the desperation in her voice now. She wasn't used to being denied, and she certainly wasn't used to having someone stand up to her. Maybe you're right, I said calmly. Maybe my pride is getting in the way. But I know one thing for sure. I'm not going to let you take everything from me. Not this time. I'm not going to let you take the house, and I'm certainly not going to let you take the skyscraper. The words hung in the air between us, and I knew they landed with the force I intended. Amanda's next words were barely a whisper, laced with disbelief. The skyscraper? She repeated like she didn't believe what she was hearing. What do you mean? I said, taking a deep breath. I'm not the one you should be worried about. You're worried about the wrong things. I'm not leaving, Amanda. And you're not getting your hands on anything that's mine. There was a long silence, and then I heard the sound of her breathing, slow and shallow. You think you can just take control of everything, don't you? She said, her voice low, cold. You think you can. Take back what you've lost like it's nothing. I haven't lost anything, I said, feeling the surge of power rise in me. I've been patient for years, but I'm done waiting. This house, this skyscraper, everything you think you have, it's not yours. It's mine, and I'm not going to give it up. I could hear her trying to compose herself, but the fear in her voice was impossible to hide. You're making a mistake, she said, her voice trembling. You don't know what you're dealing with. I know exactly what I'm dealing with, I replied, my voice unwavering. I've been living in this house for years. I've put up with your manipulations, your lies, but not anymore. Not this time. I hung up the phone without another word. I didn't need to say anything else. Amanda had heard enough. The ball was in my court now, and she knew it. I sat back in my chair, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally taking control of my life. It wasn't just about the house or the skyscraper. It was about taking back everything I had been denied for so long. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not Amanda, not James, take that from me. I was ready for whatever came next because now I was the one in charge. Days passed and I could feel the weight of everything shifting. I wasn't just holding my ground anymore. I was standing tall. Amanda had tried every trick she knew to make me fold, but each time I only grew stronger. She hadn't expected me to fight back. She hadn't expected me to take control, but now there was no turning back. I could feel the walls closing in around her. Every time I saw her, I saw a little more of the desperation behind that perfect facade. She was losing, and she knew it. I had made the decision, and it was already in motion. The skyscraper was officially mine, the papers had been signed, and I wasn't about to let Amanda and James take anything else from me. I had spent so long putting others before myself, always being the one to bend, to sacrifice, to quietly accept whatever life threw my way. But not anymore. The power that had always been out of reach was finally in my hands. And now that I had it, I wasn't going to let it slip away. The phone call came a few days after my conversation with James. I saw Amanda's name on the screen and didn't hesitate to answer. Carolyn, she said, her voice too sweet, like honey dipped in sarcasm. I think we need to talk. I let out a small sigh, knowing exactly where this was going. What about? I asked, not bothering to mask the indifference in my voice. I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot, she said, her tone suddenly shifting. I know I've been harsh, but it's just, I don't know how to handle all of this. I don't know how to fix things between us. You're my family, Carolyn. I want us to be okay. I leaned back in my chair, glancing out the window at the building that had once seemed so distant, so far out of reach. We are family, I said, keeping my voice even. But I'm not the one who's been making the decisions. You and James have been running the show, thinking you could push me aside. That's over now. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Amanda was shocked, no doubt. She hadn't expected me to be so blunt. I'm not trying to push you out, she said quickly, as if she was trying to backpedal. I just want what's best for everyone. I almost laughed, but I stopped myself. What's best for everyone? I repeated. I'm sure you think that's what you've been doing. But you've been taking everything for yourself, Amanda. You've been planning this for months, trying to take what isn't yours. And I'm done letting you. I could hear her fumbling for words. She wasn't used to being challenged. Not like this. Carolyn, please, she said, her voice desperate now. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping. Helping? I asked, my voice steady, unwavering. You thought you were helping by taking everything I worked for? By trying to push me out of my own home? There was another long pause. I could feel her struggling to regain control. I'm sorry, she said softly, but the sincerity in her voice was gone. It was all an act. I had heard it before. You don't need to apologize, I replied, my tone calm, collected. You need to understand that I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine. The skyscraper is mine. And you can't take either from me. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could tell she was reeling from the shock, from the realization that she had underestimated me. You can't just take everything from us, she said, her voice low. You don't understand what you're doing. You're destroying everything we've worked for. What you've worked for? I asked, my voice cold. You've been working to take what's mine. You've been working to push me aside. But that's not going to happen. Not anymore. I could hear her trying to keep it together, trying to find a way to regain control of the situation. But the truth was she had already lost. "I'm not going to fight you anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not going to push you out. But please, Carolyn, don't do this. Don't make things worse." I could feel a strange calm settle over me as I spoke. "You've already made things worse, Amanda. But I'm done. I'm done being the one who sacrifices. I'm done being the one who gets pushed aside. This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, not flinching. "But it's over for you. You won't control me anymore. Not now. Not ever." I hung up the phone, knowing that I had done exactly what I needed to do. I wasn't going to let Amanda win. Not after everything she had done. The game was over and I had come out on top. I sat in silence for a while, letting the weight of the moment sink in. It felt like the world was finally starting to shift, like I was finally taking control of my own destiny. The skyscraper was a symbol of everything I had been denied. And now it was mine. The house, the land, the legacy, everything I had worked for, everything Daniel and I had built was finally in my hands. And I wasn't going to let it go. I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Amanda had thought she could push me out, but now she was the one who was out of options. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the one who had to beg for scraps. I was in charge, and I was going to make sure Amanda and James knew that. They had underestimated me. They thought they could take everything I had, but they didn't realize that I had the one thing that mattered the most, power. And I wasn't going to give it up. Not now. Not ever. Days turned into weeks, and the air in the house grew heavier with each passing day. Amanda and James had tried to pretend nothing had changed, but I knew the truth. They were both walking on eggshells around me, no longer the confident duo they had once been. The power had shifted. I could feel it, and so could they. I wasn't about to let them off easy, but I knew that this was the final stretch. I had made my move, and now it was time to let everything unfold. The house was mine, the skyscraper was mine, and no one was going to take that away from me. One evening, as I sat in the living room, a knock on the door broke my concentration. It was James. He stood on the other side, his expression tired, but there was something else behind his eyes, guilt, maybe, or fear. He wasn't the same person who had stormed into my house weeks ago, demanding that I leave. The guilt that had been building inside him was finally starting to show. "Mom," he said as I opened the door, his voice quiet. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I studied him, trying to read his expression. It wasn't the same confident son I had raised. This one seemed unsure, almost lost. "Sure," I said, stepping aside to let him in. He walked past me slowly, like he wasn't sure if he should be here. "I've been thinking," he started, pausing to gather his thoughts, "about everything that's happened. I know I've made some mistakes." I raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. It was a start, I supposed, but he had a long way to go before he could fix anything. "I know I've been wrong," he continued. "I know I've let Amanda push me into things. I don't know what happened, Mom. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never meant for it to get this far." His voice wavered a bit as he spoke, and I could see that he was finally beginning to understand the weight of his actions. "James," I said softly, my voice calm but firm, "I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm not here to forgive you right away. You and Amanda have done a lot to me, and it's going to take more than just words to fix that." He nodded slowly, looking down at his hands. "I understand. I wanted to apologize. I've been selfish, and I've let Amanda manipulate me. I didn't realize it at the time, but now I see what she's been doing. She's been using me, using us to get what she wants." I couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction hearing him say those words. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a start. "You should have seen it, James. You should have seen the way she treated me, the way she tried to push me out of everything I had worked for. You didn't want to see it because it was easier for you to let her take control. But you have to understand, this isn't just about money or property. This is about respect. About family. And you, both of you, lost that a long time ago." He looked up at me then, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time, genuine remorse. "I get it now," he said quietly. "I get it. I've messed up and I'm sorry. I don't expect you to just forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm going to try to make things right." His words were enough for me to know that he was sincere. It wasn't going to be easy, but I could see that he was trying. And that meant something. It's going to take time, I said, my voice softer now. I'm not going to forget what's happened. But if you're really sorry, if you really want to make it right, then you have to show me. Not just with words but with actions. You need to prove to me that you're not the same person who let Amanda manipulate you. He nodded again, his gaze steady. I will. I swear. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied him for a moment longer, then finally nodded. I'm not giving you anything, James.
I'm
not giving you the house or the skyscraper. That's mine now. But if you're willing to work for it, if you're willing to show me that you're truly changing, then maybe, just maybe, I can start to trust you again. The tension in the room seemed to lift a little. James was still standing, but his posture had changed. He wasn't the defeated man I had seen earlier. He was trying, really trying to make amends. I understand, he said quietly. I won't let you down, Mom. I promise. I didn't say anything else. There was nothing left to say. He had finally understood. Now it was time to see if he would truly change. As he left the house that evening, I sat back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. It wasn't over yet. Amanda hadn't given up, and I knew she would be back. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had taken control of my life. The pieces were finally falling into place, and I was ready for whatever came next. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had fought too hard to let anything slip through my fingers. I had the power now, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Not Amanda, not James, no one,